Gr12, my name is Priscilla SANELANE, but you may simply call me Miss Priscilla, and on this video we are trying to help you get your distinction for LO. Now, as you know, in as much as you're going to be writing preliminary examinations for all of your subjects, when it comes to life orientation, this is going to be your final exam. So I want you to let that sink in a little bit and sit in with that reality that for LO you will be writing your final examination. So that means there will not be any other chance for you to be able to get that distinction. So if you are interested in getting that distinction, this is the time for you to do that. One of the things that I was very proud of in my matric year was when I got my September results. I looked at my results and I saw that distinction for LO, and I knew right then and there that one distinction is down and I have 6 more to go. So what I'm trying to do with this video is get that to be your own reality when you look at your results at the end of this term, that you will say 1 distinction down, 6 more to go. So let's get into how we can help you get your best results for LO and get that distinction and be done with it. The first thing you need to be able to get a distinction is to walk into the exam room knowing what to expect out of your question paper. So you need to have an idea as you are studying what your question paper is most likely going to be like. So let's go through a question paper layout starting with section A. So as you know, with most question papers, section A is where you get the quick mark question or the basic questions, and they usually start with multiple choice. Now in life orientation we have 6 topics including physical education, but because you're not going to be tested on physical education, you are going to be tested on 5 topics. So with the multiple choice question, you're going to have 5 questions, 1 coming from each of the 5 topics that you are going to write on. We are going to go through all 5 of those topics in detail in the next chapter when we discuss the scope, but here now we're just still looking at the question paper layout. The second thing that you're going to get in section A, by the way, I should mention that section A, as you can most probably assume, it's a compulsory section, meaning that all of the questions that are in section A are going to be compulsory. It is a must for you to answer all of them. So after the multiple choice, you're going to have the 1 term for description type of question, where they're basically going to give you a description and you have to give 1 term that matches that description. It's not a matching column, so that means that those 1 terms that you need to give are not given to you already on paper. They're the terms that you're going to need to know from just reading the description. So you read the description, next to the description, or rather the question number, you write what that term is. From there, you're going to have 2 mark short questions. So the 2 mark short questions are basically, it's a normal question as you should know it. It just requires you to give a 1 sentence answer that is going to be worth 2 marks. So you just answer in full, but it's just going to be worth 2 marks. It's a very short questions. For example, they can ask you to define a term, or they can ask you to give a benefit of something. For example, a benefit of studying, or a benefit of physical exercise, a benefit of a healthy lifestyle, one of the benefits. They're not going to ask you to list most of them like you would find in section B or in section C. So in section A, they would just most likely ask you to give 1 benefit out of all the benefits that you know of doing an exercise or of studying, for example. So you will see that that question will require you to give a 1 sentence answer that is going to be worth 2 marks. Lastly, the last type of question you can expect out of your section A is what we call a short extract or an illustrative source. By short extract, I basically mean a very brief case study, and you're going to just have about 3 questions that you're going to be asked from the case study. So there are going to be 3 quick questions that you can be asked from a very short case study. Unlike in section B, where you will have longer case studies, in section A is going to be a very short case study with a few questions. Or instead of it being a case study, it can be an illustrative source. By illustrative source, I basically mean a picture with words. It could be an advertisement, it could be a campaign, anything that you can think of that is an illustration, meaning that it is a picture format with some words along with that picture, and you can be asked questions on it. They will be related to the topics that fall in the scope of life orientation. In section B, you will have 2 compulsory questions. These are going to be long questions that come from long extracts or long case studies, if you will. So it's going to be a longer version of a case study or a longer version of an extract, and you will be asked quite a couple of questions that will come from those case studies. I should also mention that those case studies or extracts will be based on one of the topics that fall under the scope of life orientation, which we are going to discuss in the next chapter. But each question is going to be based on one topic, so it's not going to dilly-dally or be a integration of questions. Rather, it is going to be focused on one topic. So one topic per case study, and from that case study you will be asked quite a number of questions. Those questions, it is very important that you know that they need to be answered in full sentences. They are very particular in life orientation that your answers need to be in full sentences. I know that from other subjects you're not necessarily required to do this, and it becomes easier to get into the routine of answering things how you would answer in maths. For example, those of you who are doing maths literacy, whenever you have to use sentences, it's a shorter version of the sentence. They are marking the accuracy rather than how long the sentence is. They're all in subjects like economics, where we are marking keywords rather than full sentencing. In this one, they require you to answer in a full sentence. So when they're saying that you're going to get 2 marks, they're expecting that those 2 marks are going to come from different parts of the sentence, rather than just you giving one accurate answer and that automatically being just 2 marks, if that makes sense. So you need to make sure that you're using full sentences to answer your question. For example, what do I mean by full sentences? If you are asked to define a term, you need to define that term in a full sentence rather than just giving a quick description. For example, if I'm asked to define the term stress, I could say mental pressure. That is accurate. Stress is mental pressure, but that is not a full sentence. What I needed to say for me to be able to get my full 2 marks is that stress is a mental state where a person is under a lot of mental pressure. You see, that way I'm using a full sentence. You can even go on and give an example. That would even be better, or even clarify some more if you have to. Elaborate, basically. Elaborate your answers is what I'm trying to say by full sentence answers. Then we get to the issue of mark allocation. Just as I was saying, for you to be able to get your full marks, you need to be able to use full sentences. But there are some questions that requires more than just 1 point. The mark allocation is what's going to direct you as to how long your answers have to be. Your answers do not have to be a paragraph. They can be in bullet points for section B. But the number of bullet points that you're going to give is going to be directed by the mark allocation. So it's going to be very important that you pay special attention to your mark allocation. So any 2 mark question that has a 1 times 2 next to it basically says that it requires 1 point, and for that point, 1 point, if it's a full sentence, you will be able to get full 2 marks on the 1 point. Then there's 4 mark questions that for those 4 mark questions, they will say 2 times 2 on them. So the 2 times 2 basically means that you need to give 2 points. For each of the 2 points, you're going to get 2 marks each, which will then total up to 4 marks. Then we also have 6 mark questions. For the 6 mark questions, you will see next to them they will say 2 times 3. So meaning that you still need to give only 2 points. For each point, you're going to be allocated 3 marks, and 3 times 2, that's how you get your 6 marks. Now, it's very important there again to reiterate the issue of full sentences. If you're going to be given 3 marks on one answer, you have to understand how elaborative that answer is going to need to be. So hence I keep emphasizing on, you need to elaborate your answers. They need to be full sentences. It's not a paragraph, but it's a full sentence, meaning that you're not abbreviating, you're explaining in full what you mean or what the term is. If you're required to explain a term, if you're required to give a benefit of exercise, you're not just going to say fitness. You're going to tell us that exercising regularly, that's what gets you fit, and then that fitness is going to help you with your physical health and also fight off some of the diseases that can come from things like obesity. Right? So that's you explaining in full. You are elaborating. You're not just saying that why is fitness a benefit, basically. So you are explaining in such a way that I'm not going to ask you why is this a good thing. If you're going to say something is a benefit, also explain why that thing is a benefit for you to be able to get those 3 marks. So again, the question says to me, what is the benefit of exercising regularly? If my answer is fitness in my head, I need to be able to state it that from exercising regularly, that's where fitness will come from, and also explain why is fitness itself a benefit. Because a person can be fit, that's okay, but the thing is, why is that a benefit? Why is that a good thing? Why is that not a negative thing? You need to also explain that. That's how you get to elaborate on your answers. And also, it's some of the strategy that you need to do, as if you're running out of words or you're running out of ways to explain what you're saying, you have to think of the why behind your answer. So if you think of the why behind your answer, and you answer in such a way that the person who's marking you does not have any room to ask why or how come, then that's how you know that you have elaborated enough. So make sure that you elaborate enough and you are directed by the mark allocations as to the number of points that you need to give. Again, because you are elaborating enough in each point, you also have to make sure that the next point that you are giving, you're not repeating yourself. You're giving a totally different point that's not going to take away from the first answer that you gave. And that's why it's also important that when you are elaborating, you're elaborating in such a way that you are not going to break your 1 point into 2 points. 1 point is 1 point, and you're going to complete it as a full sentence, so that when you go to the second point, it's a different idea, it's a different point. Unlike in other subjects, in subjects like economics or business studies, I can explain one thing in 2 points, but for LO you need to make sure that you are avoiding that. Typically in section C, you will have 3 questions from which you will be required to choose only 2 that you feel that you are best at. Each question will be based on one topic as per the scope of life orientation. So your choosing will just be based on which topic are you most comfortable with. So you will choose the 2 that you are most comfortable with. In section C, we now start to answer in paragraphs. So meaning that you're not going to answer in bullet points anymore, you're going to answer in paragraphs. So your answers are going to be a full paragraph. Each paragraph is going to be worth 4 marks. So you can already imagine the type of answer and the length of the answer that you have to give in order for you to get 4 marks from just one answer, right? I hope it goes without saying that you understand that within a paragraph you will have sentences. Most sensibly, you should have at least 4 sentences that will get you 1 mark each for each of the 4 sentences, which will then total up to the 4 marks per paragraph that we are talking about. Your paragraph or rather the sentences within your paragraph can be separated by a full stop, or you are also allowed to separate them by commas, so long as they are part of the same idea. So you know how the thing that I was mentioning before in section B that you're not allowed to do, that we do in other subjects like economics, where you can have one idea but spread it into 2 bullet points. You're not allowed to do that in section B, but in section C, you can do that provided that those 2 points fall within the same paragraph. If we go back to the example we were using before of regular exercising, or rather the benefits of regular exercising, we said that in our answer we would say that one of the benefits of exercising regularly is fitness. That would be a sentence, so 1 mark for that, but then after a comma you continue, which will get you another mark. So after a comma you can continue by explaining why fitness is a benefit. So you will say from fitness helps a person keep their body healthy. That is the same idea. You're still saying the same thing. It's part of the same idea or the same explanation, but you have separated them by commas to make 2 different points that will then get you 2 marks that fall within the same paragraph. It is only when you go to the second paragraph where you will now have to give a totally different answer or a totally different idea, build it up in 4 sentences for you to get your full 4 marks for that paragraph. So again, your paragraphs can be separated by commas or a full stop. And when it comes to the mark allocation that we see in section C, is that usually you have the first question where they ask you to outline. So this is an outlining question. It is the only one where you are allowed to answer in bullet points. The question will regularly ask you to outline 4 things. So 1 bullet point will get you 1 mark, therefore giving you a total of 4 marks. It is the only one where you're not required to answer it as a paragraph. The following questions will then require you to answer as paragraphs, and those questions are more than likely going to be out of 8 marks. Hence the mark allocation will be a 2x4, meaning that give 2 paragraphs for 4 marks each. All of the topics that fall within the scope are definitely going to be tested in your exam, since this is your final examination. So they're going to be testing all of the topics that fall within the scope of life orientation, starting with the first topic being development of self in society. In this topic, what you need to study is all things that regards to stress. So when you page your test book for LO, in the topic of stress, make sure that you study everything that falls under the topic. What is stress and how to deal with it? Then you get to conflict resolution. Also make sure that you study all the techniques of dealing with conflict resolution, not forgetting the definition thereof. Then you get to relationships. With relationship, focus mostly on communication skills. So make sure that you study what are the different communication skills. From there, you will study all things that have to do with growth and change. So in your test book, look for the topic of growth and change and study everything that falls under there. Then you will conclude with human factors. In fact, I would rather start studying with human factors and work my way backwards. The reason being that under development of self in society, human factors were the last topic that was covered. I think it was covered either in term 2 or in term 3. So because it was covered last, it definitely means that it hasn't been tested as much in the past previous tests. So you can definitely expect to find more of it in your final exam. So I would start with it, focusing on lifestyle diseases under it. The second topic in the scope is social and environmental responsibility. This topic basically looks at the different stakeholders and their responsibility towards taking care of our environment. So we start by looking at the different levels of government and their responsibility towards the environment. What are those different levels of government doing to take care of the environment? Then we get to the community. what is the community's responsibility towards taking care of the environment or towards protecting the environment. Then we get to educational and intervention programs that can be used to raise awareness and help people with their knowledge of environmental sustainability and how to better take care of the environment. Then we close it with a personal mission statement, so make sure that you study what goes into that. Third, we have democracy and human rights, starting with discrimination and violation of human rights as the first topic that you should study. I take it that this is one of those topics that in life orientation they are very common, so you cannot say that you have studied the topic of, or rather for the subject of LO, and not have touched the topic of discrimination. So you should be familiar with it, but make sure that you familiarize or you remind yourself of it. But what's most important in grade 12 for you to study is the role of media, or rather social media, in democracy. So make sure that you study those roles, and then you also study the role of sports in nation building. These two are most commonly what you will be tested on in the upcoming examination. So the role of media and social media, as well as the role of sports in nation building. Then also study freedom of expression. 4, we have career and career choices. With career and career choices, you have quite a lot of things to go through, but most of it is basically general knowledge and some of the things that you have touched in other subjects. So start with job application. So what goes into a job application, the steps and the procedures. Then we look into unemployment rather. What is unemployment? Try to define it, the causes of it, and so forth, and then do the same thing for entrepreneurship, and then also get into labor laws. With labor laws, we are looking at legislative acts that govern how the workplace needs to operate. Then we get to fraud and corruption, especially with regards to looking for employment. From there, it's equity and redress. This is equity or equality in the workplace and hiring people from disadvantaged background. Then end with career portfolio, where you get into the NBT and CV making. Then the last topic becomes study skills. In study skills, you're basically looking at your study plan. So how to plan your studies, how to make a study plan, and then preparing for success, especially success in the exam room. So or a success in the examinations rather. Then we also look at revision skills. So these are basically practical things that you already ought to be doing. So general knowledge also comes into play a lot when it comes to study skills. You're basically describing your ideal study plan when it comes to your grade 12 studies. So I'm saying your ideal because I know that most of us do not follow our ideal study plan. So whatever your ideal study plan is, if you can think of it, then you can apply some of it with the questions that come from this topic. If it's in section B, the extract will guide you as to what the questions are looking for, and you will be answering it in a form of short questions anyway. But where it requires you to apply your knowledge and your general knowledge, then this is already what you are doing in your daily school life. So basically you are applying it there, so it becomes a matter of application. And that will conclude your scope for life orientation and all that you need to know to get that distinction for your exam.
Have YouTube recommend you more of my videos, be sure to click the like button and subscribe to the channel, and if you have any questions, leave them in the comment section below.